Hey everybody, this is Reformed Orthodoxy here. It is 3 in the afternoon, and I almost forgot to make a video today. So without further ado, this is Chapter 11, The Miracle of Surviving Hitler, a Boy in the Nazi Death Camps. Every morning, Jack woke up starving. It's almost impossible to describe the hunger that consumed us, Jack said. It was a pain in the stomach so severe it altered the mind. We cannot think or talk of anything but food. Food! Prisoners would say that if once, just once, they could feel full, then they would die happy. Monique's fantasy was to have a whole loaf of bread all to himself. When I'm a free man, he would say, his eyes twinkling with anticipation, I will have a big round of the best bread, and I will cut it up piece by piece and eat it just as slow or fast as I want. Jack's fantasy was more elaborate. My perfect meal, prepared by my mother, of course, begins with rich chicken soup brimming with fat handmade noodles. This is followed by succulent duck roast, all you can eat. There are many side dishes, you can hardly count them. Potatoes of all kinds, and cabbage, and every vegetable, and delicious breads. By then we've eaten so much we are in a daze, but we finish with some delicious apple strudel and a glass of lemonade made from real lemons. As the stomach ached from hunger, Jack's memories were full of wonderful family dinners. His mother would beg him, his sister and brother to eat more, though they were already stuffed. Sorry about that, I stutter. When his reveries ended, he was still in a filthy, feed-bear, lice-infested uniform in a miserable camp crowded with starving and dying prisoners. Each day, prisoners got the thin soup and foul bread, but portions grew smaller and smaller. Typhus was taking many lives. Monique worried he would catch it because he never had it. Jack's fear was not typhus, since he already had a light case, but of starvation. Either he would actually starve to death, or become so weak he could no longer work and would be shipped to the gas chambers. At some point, the prisoners knew 1944 became 1945. That winter was the worst yet. Jack and Monique were taken by truck with other prisoners to various places to help clear rubble left from Allied bombing raids all over Germany. All day long, they moved debris from destroyed buildings. A few civilians they saw in the distance seemed dejected and hungry and paid no attention to the prisoners. Did the bombings by the combined forces of England, France, Russia, and the United States mean Hitler was losing? Camp rumors were insistent that Hitler's government was starting to collapse and Russian troops were moving towards Germany. Even if this was true, would they arrive in time to save everybody inside the camps? Jack could feel his strength ebbing away. He did not know his weight, but he knew it was well under 100 pounds. He had been lean since the early days of the war, but he was now emaciated, so thin that his bones stuck out, and his face looked craggy and old. It would take a miracle for him to survive much longer, and miracles were in short supply in the concentration camps. Then one occurred. First, Jack and Monique were ordered to report to a storage room next to the kitchen to peel potatoes for the guards' soup. With an SS guard standing over them, they peeled all day long. The dirty, discarded peelings were put in the prisoner's soup. As Jack and Monique worked, they each managed to make a few peels extra thick, so they contained some potato, and slip these into their pockets to eat later. Even this tiny bit of nourishment, they knew, would help them stay alive a little longer. They worked hard and tried to be cooperative and likable. Monique was soon telling jokes and determined to get the guard to smile. Every day was the same guard. Like all the guards, he acted stern and unfriendly, and often threatened to beat them if they didn't work faster. but he never hit them, nor did he ever tell Monique to shut up. Then one day, after several weeks of peeling potatoes, weeks they were grateful to have the peelings and not to be working outside in the freezing cold, they reported for work and were told by this guard that the cook and his helper had come down with typhus. Jack and Monique, he said, must take over the prisoner. Take over the cooking, I'm sorry. We could only stare at him in astonishment, Jack recalled. Had he gotten us this job? But he wouldn't look at us. We didn't see him after that. Being a cook was the most valued job in the camp. As long as there was any food at all, as bad as it was, the cooks wouldn't starve. You didn't even know how to cook. All you did was boil water and vegetables together to make the thin soup. The boys immediately moved to the kitchen, fearful if they were not there every moment, someone would take over their jobs. The kitchen was a large room, and it was warm. In the center were 3 huge kettles, each 4 feet tall, hung over beds of hot coals. Soup ingredients were whatever had been scrounged up. Turnips, potatoes, beets, spinach. The boys were not allowed to wash or peel these items or even cut off the rotten parts. The spinach was full of sand. It felt like grit in your teeth. The soup always smelled and tasted horrible, but we were all used to it, Jack said. The soup cooked slowly all night in those huge pots. We made a little bed in the corner and took turns sleeping, making sure one of us was always awake and alert. We took our jobs very seriously. The guards came and went from the kitchen, but there were times when there were no guards actually in the room. When we were alone, we stole what we could for ourselves and gave to our friends. The guards' food was cooked somewhere else and brought to the camp for Jack and Monique to heat and serve. When we dared, we took some of it and made a little soup for ourselves in a small pot we had found, Jack said. There was shortages of food everywhere. The guards' food was not much better than ours, but at least their vegetables were clean and not rotten, and their bread was not filled with sawdust. One time they had their little pot cooking and heard the guards coming. In a split second, the boys grabbed the pot and plunged it deep into one of the big kettles of soup. Once when loaves of sawdust-filled bread, which was baked away from the camp, were being brought into the kitchen, Monique distracted the guard who was counting them. Because of this, the guard ended up undercounting the delivery by 10 loaves. The boys hid the extra bread under the coal beds. They kept some for themselves and slipped the rest to starving friends. Food had become so scarce that each prisoner was issued a monthly meal ticket, which was then punched when he went through the food line to prevent the possibility of someone going through the line twice. Jack and Monique had tickets but didn't need them. They gave them to friends so they could eat twice. Jack's ticket went to a tailor named Salak, who in return helped Jack by keeping his uniform clean and prepared. Someone told the camp authorities what the boys were doing. Probably a prisoner who got extra bread for informing on them. The boys were pouring water into the huge soup kettles when the guards ascended on the kitchen. We heard their boots stomping toward us outside the building, Jack said. They stormed through the door and surrounded us, their guns pointed at us. We threw our hands up in the air, certain we were going to die, though we didn't know why. A minute later, the head commandant of the camp came in. I will never forget him. He was all shiny boots and official uniform. He was an older man, tired-looking, thin and gray hair. He glared at the boys. Give me your meal tickets, he demanded gruffly. We had them in our pockets, Jack said, because we insisted our friends give them back to us each time we used them, just in case this very thing happened. With shaking hands, they handed over the tickets. Jack knew they could still be shot. Any excuse, even an accusation that couldn't be proved, was enough. But the commandant looked satisfied, perhaps even relieved. He signaled to the guards, and they left without a word. Jack and Monique collapsed in relief. I don't know why he spared us, Jack said. Prisoners were killed all the time for far less. But he could tell by our low numbers on our uniforms that we were old-timers. He was probably one himself. Maybe that's why. Once, a horse wandered up to the camp gate. It was a skinny, bony old horse, probably diseased, but to everyone in the camp it represented food. Prisoners who had once been butchers by trade took over. The guards got the choice meat in their soup, and Jack and Monique added the rest of the prisoner's soup. It was a memorable meal, Jack said. There was not much to go around, but we enjoyed it nonetheless. When you are starving, horse meat isn't so bad. And on Wednesday, we will read Chapter 12, Liberation.